Recently, two U.S. Air Force bomber squadrons mobilized their entire fleet of B-1 Lancer strategic bombers. This is a remarkable feat that involves mobilizing several aircraft around the world. In a potential conflict on par with China or Russia, aircraft like the B-1 Lancer would be at the forefront of the U.S. response. Over the past few weeks, the 34th and 37th Bomber Generation Squadrons mobilized their entire B-1 Lancer fleets stationed at Ellsworth Air Force Base. Some of the aircraft at these bases were relocated to other bases in the United States, while others flew as far away as the Indo-Pacific. The reason for the relocation was the need to upgrade the air base's runways to accommodate the new B-21 Raider bombers, which are set to enter service in the next few years. This is a very fast-paced mission from my perspective. You're always moving from one job to the next, said U.S. Air Force Staff SGT. Lane Benefield, 37th Bomber Generation Squadron B-1 Crew Chief, in a press release. The game plan is always changing, literally every minute on the flight line. This gives our team the opportunity to step into different roles, demonstrating incredible flexibility while enduring the cold and being away from family and loved ones. The Air Force currently has 45 B-1 Lancers on active duty. That's no arbitrary number. Congress mandates that at least 45 aircraft be kept active at all times. That number can only be reduced with appropriate congressional authorization. The Air Force takes that requirement seriously, and even resurrected an aircraft from the scrapyard last year to ensure it has 45 operational B-1 bombers. The great B-1 has been around for more than 40 years and its fundamental mission remains the same: win today, dominate tomorrow, said U.S. Air Force Major Andrew Fegan, 37th Bomber Generation Squadron Commander. From production to engineering to the lowest level, enhancing the lethality of B-1 maintenance through a partnership with Grand Forks will make our adversaries think twice. About the B-1 Lancer. The B-1 Lancer is one of the most formidable strategic bombers in the world. With a payload capacity of up to 75,000 pounds, the B-1 Lancer can destroy entire targets single-handedly. But it's also old. The venerable strategic bomber has been in service for nearly 40 years, having entered service in 1986. At one point, it was qualified to carry nuclear munitions, but has since lost that capability. However, the B-21 still serves as an active component of the U.S. military's global strike force, tasked with delivering precision strategic strikes anywhere in the world. Along with the B-52 Stratofortress and B-2 Spirit, the B-1 Lancer is a key part of the U.S. military's strategic bomber fleet. The Air Force eventually plans to retire the B-1 and B-2 and introduce the B-21 Raider, a sixth-generation stealth strategic bomber. But until that happens, the B-1 Lancer will remain a vital cog in American air power. Last month, the U.S. Air Force's Rockwell B-1B Lancer fleet based at Ellsworth Air Force Base, AFB, South Dakota, completed its relocation. Most of the aircraft won't be able to fly south during the winter. Instead, they'll operate out of Grand Forks Air Force Base, North Dakota, through 2025. That's because Ellsworth is undergoing infrastructure upgrades, including the construction of a new runway, to accommodate the Northrop Grumman B-21 Raiders that will be based at the facility in the next few years. Even if it hasn't been a particularly cold season for the region, the Lancers operating out of Grand Forks Air Force Base would likely undergo a de-icing process before taking to the skies. That process takes about 15 to 30 minutes, due to the varying sizes of the swept-wing bombers. However, some of the bombers deployed to Andersen Air Force Base, Guam, have undergone a different process this winter. An undisclosed number of B-1B Lancers from Ellsworth Air Force Base's 34th Expeditionary Bomb Squadron were deployed to Guam to take part in Bomber Task Force 25-1 last month, and while in the U.S. Western Pacific, the aircraft received a freshwater rinse after a training flight. All aircraft deployed within 1.25 miles of salt water are required to receive a freshwater rinse at least once every 15 days unless previously washed by Air Force Technical Order, the 28th Bomb Wing explained in a recent press release. Hosing down the big bombers would be a big job, so Andersen Air Force Base is equipped with the Guam Strike Freshwater Rinse Facility, commonly known as the birdbath. Constructed on the base's flight line in May 2013, the facility consists of 8 water cannons mounted on the flight line that can spray fresh water on the sides of the aircraft, while spray bars can rinse the undercarriage. Additional sprayers located on the side of the flight line are angled to ensure the top of the fighter gets a fresh rinse. The freshwater spray is necessary to remove corrosive substances including salt, and helps protect the aircraft's paint and other surfaces. The birdbaths have been used to clean B-1B Lancers, Boeing B-52H Stratofortresses and even Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptors that routinely rotate to the base. Bomber task force deployments are labor-intensive, said Lieutenant Col. Christopher Varnier, 34th Bomber Generation Squadron Commander. Given the high maintenance tempo and the inevitable challenges that come with maintaining bombers, utilizing the birdbath system is a great training tool for personnel. It allows maintenance personnel to focus on more mission-critical procedures. Anderson has one of the harshest environments for aircraft in terms of saltwater, said Master Sergeant Aaron Fletcher, 34th EBS Production Supervisor. It is very important for us to rinse the aircraft after every flight to avoid corrosion, because once corrosion occurs, the repair process takes a long time. One, the Lancer, first flown 40 years ago, remains a vital part of the U.S. Air Force's bomber fleet, even though its nuclear mission was ended in 1994. While the Cold War-era bomber will be retired when the B-21 Raider enters service, the remaining fleet of 45 Lancers has received significant upgrades in recent years, including improved communications and data storage systems. About 12.5 of the aircraft are now in serviceable condition at the notorious Boneyard at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, Arizona. Each of the B-1s is housed in a Type 2000 depot, one level below the flyable Type 1000 depot. That means the aircraft are sealed with a sealant such as silicone, which seals the gaps, the engines and all the glass. Amid the de-icing, washing and servicing of the spare aircraft, the incident served as a reminder that the harsh elements are as serious an enemy as the most modern anti-aircraft systems. Of the 3 strategic bombers in the U.S. Air Force inventory, the B-1, B-2, and B-52, the B-1 has several distinguishing features. First, the B-1 is the fastest bomber in its class, while the B-2 and B-52 are limited to subsonic speeds, comparable to a commercial airliner you might fly from Newark to O'Hare. The B-1 is capable of breaking the sound barrier with a top speed of Mach 1.2, or 900 miles per hour. Second, the B-1 has the largest payload capacity. At first glance, you might think that the B-52, with its 8 engines, would be able to carry a heavier payload than its contemporaries. However, it is the B-1 that has the distinction of having a payload capacity of 75,000 pounds. The B-52 can carry 70,000 pounds of ordnance. The B-1, along with its ability to carry a very large payload, has the ability to carry a variety of payloads. The B-1 can handle guided and unguided weapons, bombs, and missiles, and it can even handle nuclear weapons, including the B-61, B-83, and AGM-69 SRAM. Fortunately, the B-1, or any airframe currently in service, has never been called upon to drop a nuclear weapon. However, the B-1's ability to do so gives the United States a strategic advantage through more diverse and versatile nuclear options. 3. The B-1 is the only bomber, and the only airframe left, period, to have swept wings. Swept wings are exactly what they sound like, wings that can be swept back and forth. The advantage of swept wings is the ability to change the shape of the aircraft in mid-flight, thereby changing the aircraft's flight characteristics. In short, swept back wings reduce drag and increase speed, swept forward wings increase drag, reduce speed, and increase stability and lift. The result is an airframe that is more versatile and comfortable in a variety of roles and attitudes. But the B-1, for all its technological prowess, was not designed with stealth in mind. That was fine in the 1970s when the B-1's airframe was designed and when air defense systems were more porous and less sensitive, when sheer speed could solve many of its problems. But as the Pentagon looks ahead to potential future conflicts, with air defense systems far less sophisticated than the B-1 faced in operations against Iraq or Afghanistan, the B-1's effectiveness is likely to wane. The B-1 is expected to be phased out by 2035, ending what should have been an impressive half-century of service. The U.S. Air Force is facing one of the most serious problems in recent history. It doesn't have enough combat-ready aircraft. The latest data on aircraft readiness reveals that the Air Force is struggling to maintain an adequate fighter fleet with declining availability rates. According to data published by Air and Space Forces magazine, the Air Force's operational fleet is not in good shape. In fact, aircraft readiness has dropped to its lowest level in at least 10 years. For fiscal year 2024, the average mission success rate for all aircraft in the Air Force fleet was 67.15%. In fiscal year 2023, the average mission success rate was 69.92%. And in fiscal year 2022, the average mission success rate was 71.24%. Over the past few years, there has been a steady decline in the number of combat-ready aircraft. One possible reason for the decline is that aircraft are getting older and therefore harder to maintain. Worse still, when compared to data from 2004 to 2006 and from 2012 to 2024, the average mission success rate in 2024 is the lowest. Some important clarifications. The Air Force considers an aircraft mission capable if it can perform at least one of its primary missions. Many aircraft can perform multiple mission sets, including strategic strike, electronic warfare, ground attack, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance (ISR), and more. For example, if an F-15EX Eagle II can perform the air superiority mission but not the missile defense mission, it is still considered mission capable. The above percentages relate to missile capability levels and not full mission capability levels, which refer to the aircraft's availability to perform all assigned mission sets. Most importantly, in recent years, the Air Force has changed the way it calculates mission availability. It now considers the availability of spare parts, trained pilots, and qualified maintenance personnel when determining average mission success rates. To make matters more confusing, the Air Force uses different metrics for each aircraft. It's also worth noting that the Air Force is channeling spare parts and general support priorities to squadrons stationed around the world. As a result, aircraft closer to hotspots in Europe and the Indo-Pacific are enjoying significantly better average mission availability rates than aircraft stationed in the United States. In terms of strategic bombers, the B-1 Lancer had an average availability of 43.44%, down 3.56% from FY23, the B-2 Spirit had an availability of 55.04%, down 0.96%, and the B-52 Stratofortress had an availability of 53.77%, down 0.23%. The situation on the fighter front is mixed. Some aircraft are seeing significant increases, others are holding steady, while others are seeing significant decreases. In terms of fighter jets, the F-35A had an average availability of 51.5%, a 0.5% increase from FY23. The F-22A Raptor had an availability of 40.19%, a decrease of 11.81%. The F-15D had an availability of 63.73%, an increase of 8.73%. The F-15C had an availability of 52.86%, a 33%. The F-15X had an availability of 83.13%, a decrease of 1.87%, and the F-16C had an availability of 64.05%, a decrease of 4.95%, and the F-16D had an availability of 59.03%, a decrease of 5.97%. The Air Force is currently in the process of modernizing its fleet by combining the F-35A and F-15EX Eagle II. Additionally, the Air Force will soon introduce the B-21 Raider strategic stealth bomber and retire the long-awaited B-2 Spirit aircraft. It is better to have a combat-ready aircraft than one that is sitting in a hangar and not operating properly. The Air Force understands this and is working to find a solution. Feature image: F-15E Strike Eagles assigned to the 48th Fighter Wing, F-16 Fighting Falcons. Assigned to the 52nd Fighter Wing, Spangdahlem Air Base, Germany, and Polish Air Force F-16 Fighting Falcons conduct an elephant parade at Lask Air Base, Poland, April 21, 2021. Ongoing exercises and interactions between allied and partner forces allow us to work together as a team to address security threats and enable all participants to contribute to the international coalition.